U.S. Justice Department figures show that more than 1 in 3 Native women will be raped in her lifetime. And because of legal inequalities, there's a good chance the perpetrator won't be punished. For more than 2 decades, a woman in Lake Andes, South Dakota, has been working to change this. South Dakota Public Broadcasting's Jennifer Jones has more in today's Dakota Digest.
From the outside, the Native American Women's Health Education Resource Center almost looks just like another house. Except for a small sign out front, you might miss it. Don't be fooled, however, because inside there's a lot going on. Sharon Asatoya, along with 12 interns and employees, are making Yankton Siouxland a safer place for women and children. Native women are 2.5 times more likely to be sexually assaulted than non-Native women. Asatoya says it's because the laws don't offer equal protection.
In the event that there may be we'll say a rape on Indian land and the perpetrator is non-Indian, the tribal law enforcement and the Bureau of Indian Affairs law enforcement does not have the authority to arrest them, and the tribal court does not have the authority to bring them in and prosecute them through tribal court. So they basically can come onto the reservation, rape a woman, a Native woman, and then leave.
Unless the FBI comes in to investigate, nothing happens. However,
and a lot of times the FBI doesn't come because there's not proper evidence.
The Indian Health Service doesn't have standard sexual assault policies and protocols, so some emergency rooms don't have anyone to collect the proper evidence. Many hospitals have on hand someone to do a rape kit, which is the standard way to gather physical evidence to be used later in trial. But in the lower 48 states, a Native woman has to travel an average of 100 miles in order to get a rape kit done. When a rape kit is done, it's important to have the person who performed it appear in court. However, it's a difficult process.
They have to have approval by the local service unit director, then the area director, and then headquarters in Rockville, Maryland. And when it gets up there to headquarters, it seems to just disappear into some hole, never to be heard of again.
Just hearing some of the statistics is enough to make anyone frustrated. But everyone at the resource center seems upbeat and positive. Asatoya says when they get depressed, she tells everyone to close their eyes and picture what the community was like before.
Look at how women are now coming together, organizing, looking to us for services and information. But just think what it would be like if we weren't here. Change is slow, and as long as there's a change agent around to help facilitate that change, community is in a much better place than it is without a change agent.
Asatoya is a member of the Comanche tribe and grew up in California. After an abusive first marriage, she came to South Dakota to go to school, where she met her second husband, Clarence Rockboy. They were only planning on staying a few years, but in 1985 they incorporated the Native American Community Board in the basement of their home. Shortly thereafter, the Resource Center opened.
As soon as word got out that we were doing programming for women and children, women in a domestic violence situation would flee to our office, and it happened to be our home. And so we realized early on that we needed to address this issue, and eventually opened up a shelter.
In 1991, the Women's Lodge opened. It can house up to 18 women and children who are provided with transportation and given help finding a lawyer. The center also provides a men's re-education program. Asatoya says she went through her share of problems when trying to open the shelter.
Every community should have a safe haven for us, but many communities don't, and they object to it.
She says that's because many people are in denial that the problems are happening. Also, many times the people in positions of power are perpetrators themselves.
Nobody's exempt from it. No race, color, creed, income. They're perpetrators of family violence and sexual assault everywhere.
Asatoya says up until last year, not much was happening on the national level. Then Amnesty International published its report, Maze of Injustice, highlighting the severe inequality for women in Indian country. The publicity caused Congress to pay more attention, but she says a lot still needs to be done.
It all boils down to failure to provide equal protection under the law, which means that our constitutional rights to equal protection under the law is being violated by the federal government. And if that isn't a contradiction, I don't know what is.
Asatoya says Native American history in this country is full of these kind of contradictions. She says many Native families are still hurting as a result of historic trauma and oppressive federal Indian policies. But she's working to overcome this, one change at a time. For South Dakota Public Broadcasting, I'm Jennifer Jones.